Hey friends, I've got a quick 15-minute project for you because let's face it, we're all short on time in December. This little painted acrylic sign is perfect for a tiered tray. You're going to want to run out and get all the supplies and make this one right away. So join me and let's get started. Alright, so we're using some very simple supplies today. I have a template here. It's the fa la 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 la. How cute is that? And then a little acrylic square that I picked up at the dollar store. You can see it's just $1.25. And we are going to letter on this today. So before you do anything, you're going to want to remove that plastic wrap covering. This is a super great project for a beginner because the acrylic is so forgiving. You can easily scratch off, remove anything that you don't like, okay? Now the template that I'm using has been sized down. It normally comes to fit an 8.5 by 11 piece of paper. So I sized this down a good bit so that it would fit on my square, and I just basically print it out at a lower percentage. I think I did about 50% on this one. And then we've got our paints, we've got our paint brushes, and a Posca paint pen. So the colors that I'm using are Soft Green by Apple Barrel, and then I've got the Classic Green by Folk Art, and a Santa Red by Americana. So first things first, we're going to be tracing our template underneath that acrylic square. So I've got my Posca pen here and I've got it centered, I've got the template centered underneath that acrylic square. So it's very easy for me to go over it with my Posca pen, just start tracing. And if you're new to using a paint pen for lettering, this is a really great project like I mentioned before because the acrylic is so slick and shiny. If you mess up, it's very easy to remove that paint, unlike say if you were doing something on wood. So now as I'm tracing the template design, I am basically doing the outline first and then coming back to fill it in. And you're gonna find that yours might look a little bit strange, a little bit streaky even, because the paint, it's that slick surface, the paint really just needs a second to dry on it. So don't worry about it, just keep going. And you're also going to be careful that you don't drag your hand through. Now obviously I'm left-handed, so I have to think a little bit more about not dragging my hand through that wet paint. But even if you're right-handed, when you get down to that second line, you're also going to want to just, be careful of that. This tracing method is really so fast. That's part of what makes this such a quick project, is you don't have to transfer it any other way. You're just looking through that clear plastic and tracing it. And it's a really great way to also practice your lettering. All right, now we're almost done. We're going to get that last letter traced, and then we get to see the reveal of what it looks like after we remove the paper. So, all right, carefully slide the paper out from underneath. Don't touch the wet paint, and you can see what that looks like. It's a little bit hard to tell in camera, but mine is a little streaky. So when it dried, I went back and added a second coat to that. Before we move on to the next step, we do want to make sure that that ink is good and dry before we flip it over for the next part. So I'm using just a little heat gun here, just a little craft heat gun that helps speed up the process of that paint drying. That way we don't have to wait forever to move on to the next step. Now you can give your paint just a little bit of a tap to see is it dry or not. If it's still wet, you're going to want to wait, but if it is pretty dry, then you're safe to flip it over. So on the back, we're going to add some paint, and we're going to do a paint blotch method. So I've got 3 different colors that I'm using here, and let's just go ahead and add them to our plate so that we've got them all handy. I'm just reusing an old paper plate that I have used for other projects. Now let's just start laying down paint. I started with red because I wanted to give it a background to the letters. I really should have started with the lighter color, okay? So I'm going to go ahead and say that up front, but here you're just seeing me do some blotches, and I love this paint blotch method because it gives a really nice abstract background. So once you get one color in, you can start with another. You may want to wait a little bit in between colors to let it dry so that there's not a whole lot of blending between the colors. You can kind of see how some of my red is smearing into the green a bit because I did not wait. There's really no right or wrong with this. You just can put down colors however you prefer and think about the colors that you're planning on using. So my biggest mistake is that I'm used to doing this method on a canvas, and so you would normally start with your darker colors and move towards your lighter colors, and I did not factor in the fact that I would be flipping this over. We're doing it on the reverse, and so really I should have started with the lighter color and then moved to the darker to layer them up. I did this on a Facebook Live originally, so I just had to go with it. So I'm gonna go ahead and grab my heat gun again and dry that before I go with the light green, just to take some of that wetness off of the paint that's already down. And then you see me now with the light soft green color. This is where I think the paint blotch method really shines, because you can see that blotchy abstract background and you can see how I'm layering the colors over each other. Unfortunately, it's not going to necessarily show as well on the flip side, but this is how I would normally do it. So if you're creating this, you're going to want to do it with the light green starting first. All right, now with the heat gun again, we're going to get that good and dry before we flip it back over so we can see our finished result. And there she is. Now right off the bat, I felt like it was a little too see-through, so I went back in and I'm adding a little bit more paint to darken that up so that it is more opaque. You literally cannot mess this up. And even though I layered mine differently than how I would go back and do it now, it still didn't mess up the end result. It still looked good. So just keep adding paint until it looks good to your eye, until you're pleased with it. This is just such a forgiving technique. And there you have it. One last hit with that heat gun to dry the paint, and we are done. So with a simple template, we were able to create this cute acrylic sign with a super simple method of tracing on top of the acrylic. I put it in a tiered tray as a fun, festive little decoration. You could turn this into an ornament, use it as a package embellishment, or a tabletop decoration. Let me know your ideas in the comments below. Thanks again for watching. Please hit the like button if you enjoyed this tutorial and subscribe so you don't miss any future projects like this one. I've got a lot more fun things to come. See you next time.